Years before I thought about ministry as a profession, I completed a graduate degree that focused on cultural anthropology, women's studies, and religion. My thesis project for that degree was based on a series of interviews I did with about 20 or so lesbian women from various faith communities about what their coming out experience had been like. My working thesis for this project was that those women who had grown up in a more conservative religious tradition would have the most difficulty with that coming out experience. But I found that not to be the case at all. In fact, there was no correlation between conservatism and difficulty. Fortunately, I had a very wise and very patient advisor who encouraged me to keep looking at my interviews. She would say, "There's something really interesting there. It's just not what you expected to see." And for weeks, that something interesting remained a complete mystery to me. And then one day, when I had the humility to look past my own expectations, it was really obvious, that correlation. The correlation wasn't about the churches. It was about the parents of these women. The difficulty each woman had in coming out depended upon how she saw her personal relationship with how she defined God. And that relationship was in turn modeled after her primary caregiver. So that if her mother had been emotionally abusive, God was experienced as someone who found her unworthy. If her father was judgmental, she saw God as judgmental and judging her sexuality harshly. If love had been withheld for bad behavior when she was a small child, then God was seen as unavailable unless she led a moral life. If the caregiver's love was unconditional, then she saw the love as God as something that could never be removed from her experience, and so on. Interview after interview, I witnessed this deep autobiographical element of the divine-human relationship. Our images of a personal God represent the frustration, in most cases, felt at the loss of the holding environment we felt we needed when we were our youngest selves. That Garden of Eden from which we were banished during that time. And this personal God who takes on the qualities, human qualities, of judgment, anger, passive aggressiveness, or unconditional love is common among humans, regardless of our culture. The idea of a God that takes on these qualities tugs at something deep within us, deep within our psyches, because it gives us the chance to correct any wrongs we felt we experienced as a child, if we now behave appropriately. I was reminded of this psychic tug over Thanksgiving when I was visiting my mother in Minnesota. And we were watching one of her favorite television programs Saturday night. It was the gospel hour on country TV. We listened as Alan Jackson crooned the old rugged cross, Rock of Ages, Just As I Am, Tell Me the Old, Old Story. And I found myself getting choked up with Mom as we were transported back to that Eden, safe in the arms of our Jesus. And I remember thinking, why do I get so wrapped up in these weird thinking patterns? Attachment theory suggests that when it comes to the divine human encounter, we do not see through a glass darkly, as the mystics tell us we should. Instead, we see through a mirror brightly. We are looking at our own image, seeing ourselves so that we can hold the truth with a capital T. Some of you, I know I've talked about process theology, which was a description of the holy that made perfect sense to me when I was in seminary. God as an entity that brings us into being, sustains us throughout our lives, transforms us through grace when we cannot transform ourselves, and calls us back when life has used us up. A presence that loves us, encouraging us to be creative and joyful and appreciative of the rich diversity that surrounds us. All of this still jives with my personal experience, and yet, as I've gained more self-understanding through some Myers-Briggs work and Enneagram work, I started to realize that, oh, that's me. This entity that process theology describes is largely a reflection of my own personality, developed through my own unmet needs. And so these ideas, regardless of how rich and meaningful they may be to me, sometimes I remember I have to check them at the door as well. And just let the mystery be. Every definition we give to the mystery is a pale imitation. How then do we speak about it? How do we approach knowing anything about this source of our being when our own histories keep getting in the way? There is a sculpture of the goddess Isis, who is known for her knowledge of the natural world. She stands on a pedestal in the Museum d'Orsay, I don't speak French well, in Paris. The sculpture was created by Louis Barrios in 1899, and it carries the title, Nature Revealing Herself to Science. The goddess is seen lifting her veil to reveal just a glimpse of a bare breast, a little bit of her toe, giving us a demure smile and an aura of mystery. She gives expression in this way of one of the oldest and most enduring themes of scientific discovery, that there is always a hidden aspect of creation. She reveals herself reluctantly to the scientist, reminding us that all discoveries are provisional until more is unveiled. In fact, it is only through abandoning the search for absolute truth that science makes any progress at all. All scientific discovery begins with a curious mind and the ability to say, I don't know, but I'm curious. I've been thinking about the facts, with quotes, facts I learned in high school about electrons, neutrons, and protons, quarks and other entities that I can't even name, have shown us that what I learned in high school about electrons is not really true. And yet, think of all the scientific discoveries that happen as a result of those theories. Science always rests on the back of previous insights that we then need to let go of as new information comes to us. Science can only advance when we are curious enough and humble enough to let go of the data that is no longer relevant. At the same time, we can appreciate the theories of the past for what they have given us and allowed us to build on. And this attitude that scientists bring to their work, the capacity to say, I don't know, but I'm curious, is, I think, also appropriate for how to approach the mystery of the divine human encounter. The idea of a hidden God is common in many traditions. She, too, lifts her veil reluctantly. Christian mystics speak eloquently of this cloud of unknowing. The idea that whenever we get a glimpse of this mystery, it is always seen through a glass darkly. That is considered a great wisdom. And so there's a similarity between the mystics and the scientists' approach to life, each seeking that hidden essence of what they study, what lies behind the veil. And they are content in knowing that much of what they seek remains unknown. Theological understanding, too, only advances when we are curious enough and humble enough to let go of doctrines and dogmas that no longer serve us. Oh, but we humans love to have the answers, don't we? It's a human condition to want answers. It reduces our fear. Who am I? Why am I here? What does it all mean? We have tried to answer those big questions through theology for centuries, and so we have developed systems of dogma and doctrine which are based on our pale imitations of this mystery to give us some assurance. But they've also given us crusades, pogroms, and jihad. Chet Ramo, who's a religious naturalist with Catholic sensibilities, cautions that it is this personal God that we see in a mirror brightly that stands in our way of seeking a truer mystery. When this God is gone, he says, everything is holy. Protestantism, which is the very trunk of our family tree, has largely been responsible for that, I believe. Using the metaphor of the baby and the bathwater, Protestants kept the baby and they threw out the bathwater. And when I say baby, I'm talking about specific doctrine and dogma. I'm talking about the triune God and all that goes with that idea. And when I say the bathwater, I'm meaning the sacramental aspects of life, the ritual, like you experienced last week. Sacred stories, sacred poetry, sacred songs, spiritual practices, the teachings of the mystics. All of these bathwater entities help point to something we cannot yet comprehend. I think as Unitarian Universalists, we need to shift and reverse what the Protestants have done. In other words, instead of keeping the baby and forgetting the bathwater, what if we were to keep the bathwater and let go of the baby? Each one of us begins life with a deep inhale and ends with a final exhale. And between these 2 points, there is this life animated by an incomprehensible spirit. Years of theological study have brought me to a place where I say, I'm ready to let the mystery just be and just remain curious. In his book, Honey from Stone, Chet Ramo describes this dance of reverent knowing and not knowing in this way. He writes, all that we know, now and forever, all scientific knowledge that we have in this world or will ever have is as an island in the sea of mystery. We live in our partial knowledge as the Dutch live on polders claimed from the sea. We dike and we fill, we dredge up soil from the bed of mystery, and we build ourselves room to grow. And still, the mystery surrounds us. It laps at our shores, it permeates the land. Scratch the surface of knowledge, and mystery bubbles up like a spring. And occasionally, at certain disquieting moments in history, Galileo, Planck, Einstein, a tempest of mystery comes rolling in from the sea and overwhelms our efforts, reclaims knowledge that has been built up for years of patient work, forces us to retreat to the surest, most secure core of what we know, where we huddle in fear and trembling until the storm subsides. And then we start building again, throwing up dikes, pumping, filling, extending the perimeter of our knowledge and our security. Unquote. I love this metaphor as knowledge as an island in the sea of mystery. If we accept this concept, then as the island grows, the island of knowledge, it only increases the shore along which we encounter the mystery. And we are at our human best, I believe, when we exist at the shore with one foot on the hard ground of knowledge and the other foot in the sea of mystery. It is at the shore that our most creative work takes place. of the artist, the poet, the theologian, and yes, the scientist. During this season, which is difficult for many Unitarian Universalists, I know, because we spend time with relatives and friends that will claim that a babe born in a manger has provided all the answers to the big questions and gives us all the assurance we need. May you find the time to stand in awe and in celebration of that life force that exists beyond all of our metaphors, beyond all of our truths with a capital T, and beyond all the pale imitations of the mystery that we create in our own image. May you instead stand on the shore of knowledge and look into the sea of mystery and call out her name. May it be so, and blessed be.